Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Magic Podcast. Each week, we will explore one aspect of what makes your brain magical, how we set intentions, cast powerful spells, and use rituals to manifest. I'm Siddharth Ramakrishnan. I'm a neuroscientist, but I also read tarot and explore mystical practices. In today's episode, we will talk about magical thinking and how our brains are wired for it. Subscribe and follow the links below to learn more about the books and the newsletters. Now, let's explore our magical brains together. We all have magical thinking as kids. Magical thinking is when we attribute two very disparate events or objects together and connect them together, and sometimes even providing a cause and an effect. So, if I wave this wand, something happens, and I'm sure all of us have different examples of something like this that happened to us as kids. One thing that I keep going back to is when I was very young, about when I was in my fourth grade. I never usually got into physical altercations. I was not that kind of a kid, but I remember I slapped a peer and a classmate, and then when I came home, I found that there was a death in the family, and for some reason, I kind of connected these two events together, and kind of my physical force of slapping somebody was almost translated into the death blow. For a long time afterwards, I was kind of curious as to when that final moment had come, and I was trying to see if there was an actual physical connection between me behaving a certain way and causing this painful incident to happen. Of course, not all magical events need to be that profound. It can have like very simple cause and effects, or simple things that we attribute magical realities to. But we all, when we are kids, are much more easily prone to this kind of magical thinking, and over time as adults we tend to lose the sense of magic sometimes, and we are not as much thinking about it anymore. And this could be because of society, where society says, oh, magic doesn't exist, or these kinds of things don't make any sense. And it's also because we are developing our frontal lobe, and our logical reasoning kind of takes over. And more when we interact with society, when we interact with the world, we have to work with logic. And so we're kind of putting aside that leap of faith, or the leap of connection that we are using in order to make the magical reasoning or magical thinking. But some of us still maintain this relationship with magic because we have the wiring underlying it in the brain. So, and at this point, I want to say, if you're listening, please comment on what your magical thinking is, and whether you, as an adult, you still think that magic is real, and if so, what is the most recent connection you made between two different things that you attributed to magic? Or were you more prone to magical thinking as a kid? So please write your stories. It'll be really nice to kind of look at it, and maybe we can share on our experiences of walking through the world looking at magic. So why do what within us, what in our brains is providing us this ability to think magically is a big question. So do we really have circuits in us that is allowing us to think a certain way about magic? So for this, the first thing we probably need is belief in some external power. If I have a crystal, and I'm believing that this crystal has this agency to provide, say, power, or provide a cleansing, or provide peace to me, I need to actually attribute a certain level of agency to this particular object in front of me. And so that belief is coming from is because we, as humans, as social animals, are need to provide agency to other people. So when you look at a friend, or look at another person in front of you, you know that they are able to act in a certain way. They have certain thoughts, and so they are going to behave a certain way. So you're actually devoting certain real estate in your brain in order to give that person agency. So this part of the brain is called your theory of mind region, and it's kind of located right in that chunk. If you kind of let's go to the top of your ear and gently follow it along to right almost the midpoint between the top of your head and right above your ear. And so right there would be your temporoparietal junction. So this is what is the main area. Sometimes it's called TPJ. It's the temporoparietal junction. And this part of the brain is what is considered to be the main area for the theory of mind. And so not only are we using this theory of mind to give agency to other people around us, but we are also using the same area of the brain to provide agency to objects around us. And it doesn't have to be a physical object. It could be planets. You know, when you say, oh, Mercury is in retrograde, and so that's kind of affecting me. Or when you say the universe helped me do a certain thing. So you're providing this external force or external entity some kind of agency, and that's basically because your mind has this network which allows you to attribute power and force to something beyond just yourself. So that is our first circuit, part of the circuit that we need. And sometimes we also, beyond just attributing external objects, we also have the ability to believe in something beyond ourselves. So having circuits or parts of the brain which can believe in the supernatural, almost in gods, or the ability of something to have power. And there's a part of the brain which is, again, right above your ears, is your temples, is the temporal lobe. So kind of, if you follow your, if you point your finger to your temples of your forehead and then gently slide it back up all the way along the top of your ear, that area is called the temporal lobe. And that area of the brain has been shown where there's an experiment called God's helmet, where they put this helmet on people, and if you stimulate those particular areas, the people say, oh, I can see God, or I can I have these feelings of magical feelings of things happening. And so that particular experiment is called the God's helmet experiment. You can look it up. It's really actually that particular person, the scientist who devised the experiment, had gone on to actually develop a helmet called Shiva's helmet. And I think he passed away, but you can look that up if the helmet is still available. And it was mainly done, this particular stimulation was done to prevent seizures. And what they've actually shown is that if you have seizures in those particular areas, that those people also claim to have religious experiences or transcendental experiences where they feel connected and a oneness with God. So that there's that part of the brain is kind of giving you that connection with the supernatural almost. The next area is how we are connecting two very disparate events together. I talked about the slap and the death and how they are connected together. So we have this area of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. So to find out, kind of, this area is a little bit more internal, but how I would do it is, if you kind of place the palm of your hand against your forehead and curve your fingers along the curvature of your skull. So that's the surface. Now let's imagine you dropping your entire palm maybe through your skull into your brain, right, kind of just drop it down a few millimeters into your brain, and that's where your anterior cingulate cortex would be. So it kind of curves all the way from the front of the brain and loops around towards the top of your head, and it actually goes even further back, the cingulate cortex, but the anterior one is more towards the front. So it kind of, think about your palm and the curvature of your the heel of your hand and the curvature of your palm to be the regions of your anterior cingulate cortex as you're placing it against the top of your head. So this part of the brain is the one that is normally helping you connect things logically. So if I snap my fingers, I'm going to hear a noise. So the logical is I'm kind of expecting that. So the logical is the noise is being produced by the snap of my fingers. So that's the very logical reason. So, but if you are connecting like very disparate events where the cause and effect is not that clear, this area of the brain is being suppressed. So you're almost allowing that connection of my, say, my slap causing the death to happen is because the logical reasoning or the connection is kind of the connection is allowed to form because you're kind of suppressing the activity in this particular area, allowing you to connect the dots. Uh, long ago, I had this when I was a cheap graduate student in Chicago. I had this the TV where I used to I had to manually go and press the buttons to change the channels. The remote didn't work, and at one point the buttons to change the channels fell off, uh, and along with that, also the TV would automatically, completely on its own, switch back to this one particular channel. And sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. But essentially, I'll be watching something and then suddenly it'll just switch to something else. So initially, I was furious at this thing because I had to kind of go up there and like press the other button like to make sure that I could change my channel. But then I also started wondering whether the TV was sending me messages of things that I should be noticing around the world around me. And so again, I started to connect this TV channel changing to is there like an actual message that's coming across? And my logical brain, of course, would be like saying, no, it's not really like happening. But if I was suppressing my anterior cingulate cortex, it's going to tell me, hey, maybe you should listen to this. Maybe the TV is actually telling you something. So that's what's going on there. Along with all of this, we know that a lot of times when we're thinking about situations or magical events, it's sometimes it's tied with our emotions. So maybe something will make you feel excited, or maybe something will make you feel with a heaviness of heart, or when you're actually executing the piece of magic, you might feel quite powerful. So we are tying in things with emotions. Maybe you've kind of done a ritual many times and it's associated with feeling a sense of relief. So you're actually looking back to your past experiences and of doing this particular ritual, and that's allowing you to kind of say, oh, you know what, the last time I did it, I experienced this, so I will be doing that again. So you might have it might have a special place in your heart to do that particular ritual and have that magical release that's coming for you. And so for this, we are using two different areas of the brain. One is your amygdala, which is your tied in with your fears and emotions and anger and your emotional centers, and your hippocampus, which is your memory centers. And these are also kind of, if you place your hands along your temples, right above your on either side of your head, and kind of think about them kind of diving in deep into your brain, not all the way to the center, but kind of just under your skull and kind of penetrating inside. You will feel your amygdala and your hippocampus within your temporal lobes there. And so these are going to help you with tying in emotions into your magic or magical reasoning that you're having. And finally, we kind of have something. We have an external agency. We have attributed supernatural powers to it. We have tied it with emotions, and we also kind of form these connections between cause and effect. I wave my wand, and that causes this to happen. We've kind of formed those connections, but do you really believe it? that is going to mainly come from your judgment centers. We are always judging things. We are all like, yeah, you can say yes, I'm not a judgy person, but no, as humans, we are judging everything. Is this right? Is this not? Is this okay? Is this not? Is this magical? Is this not? We are constantly like judging things, and so. We are altering our judgment, and we need to actually alter our judgment, and for that we're using our frontal lobe. So right in front of your eyes, if you just kind of touch the forehead right above your eyes, so you're kind of suppressing judgment so that you're allowing yourself to believe that this is actually happening, and so we have to do that in order for us to believe that magic is happening. And this is what kind of ties it all together to allow us to have this magical thinking ability. Another thing I used to do when I was a kid was I once had a ladybug as a pet. It's a weird pet to have, but growing up, my dad's a doctor back in India, and he never allowed us to have like cats or dogs because he said, "Oh my God, disease." So I think nowadays, I think more people have pets in their houses, but it wasn't the norm when I was growing up. And so I had a ladybug as a pet, but and I think it had was on its back, and I assumed it was dead. And I buried it, and then I ate some of the sand from its grave. And lo and behold, the ladybug actually recovered and started running around. I don't know if it was on his back and it had like turned up, or maybe it was another ladybug that had recovered. But I was completely sure that my eating the sand was what caused the ladybug to kind of revive and make a miraculous recovery from death. And so I created this agency to this physical act of eating the sand, and I attributed that to connect the dots of that caused the ladybug to revive, giving it some supernatural experience. And then I also clearly suppressed my judgment and saying, instead of being like logically like, no, things that died cannot come back, I kind of also suppressed my judgment in kind of creating this magical story of how this ladybug was allowed to recover. And from then on, like I had many more ladybugs after that, and I always used to land up eating the sand. So it's so we are all using these circuits to be magical. And so one thing that we could think about is a question as to why do we have this ability to think magically, and do all of us have it, or is it only some people? So that's a very interesting question. So if you think about it, we as humans, we have to navigate this world by looking at all kinds of patterns around us, and we have to a lot of times make very quick decisions about what's happening, what is doing this, what is doing that, who is connected to what is, and so we have to make a lot of quick choices about the patterns that we are seeing around us. So, evolutionarily, a magical thinking might be a really, really good way for us to make connections, even though we don't have all the information in front of us. So, if you see a black cat crossing in front of you, and at one point you had seen someone slip and fall down, you might associate the black cat moving across to be something of a danger. And then if nobody had slipped and fallen, maybe you wouldn't have noticed it. But if you had noticed that thing, then you might have connected A with B and said, that incident of the black cat crossing the road is what caused the other thing. And it is evolutionarily better for you to make that association so that you don't, on the off chance, fall and break your head. Because what is the best outcome is you'll have a good story. Oh, I saw the black cat. I kind of, you can laugh it off and saying, I can't believe I believe this, but you'll have a good story to tell. But the worst outcome is if you didn't believe it, then you might have fallen down and broken your head. So that might be one reason why we have this circuit in us, to think magically, to kind of form those disparate connections and put them together, and try and make it work. So on some level, I guess magical thinking is a survival tool, and where we've been using it so that you're forming these very quick connections in order to make choices onto what's going on about things around the world. And we probably tend to remember the associations that had those big impacts, and we tend to forget the ones that did not have a big impact. And so, because that they were just not that important, so your brain recognizes and adds value to certain things or situations that had impact on you. So, I wanted to leave you with some exercises that maybe you can practice to maybe go back to your world of magical thinking that you used to have when you were a kid. And it'll be lovely for you to comment and share to see how these exercises work, and or if you come up with your own, if you have your own little magical practice for mundane activities, you can write about it. It'll be really cool for all of us to, as a community, to share our own magical thinking practices and how to improve our magical thinking abilities in our brain. So, the exercise I'm going to leave you with today is one about creating a ritual around a very mundane task. It can be any mundane task. It could be brushing your teeth in the morning. In my book, I talk about making a cup of coffee. But here, I'm going to talk about washing your face. So let's say you wash your face when you wake up in the morning, and normally we would mechanically go and pick up a piece of soap and splash water on our face, and then rub the soap, and then you kind of do the splash the water more, and then you rinse it off. Maybe use a washcloth. So there are different ways people would do it. So, but here, let's create a ritual and some intentionality and a piece of magic around this particular action, a very mundane action of maybe washing your face. So, grab your soap in the left hand, and with your right, sprinkle some water on it 3 times. And as you're sprinkling the water, notice the temperature of the water on your hand, the feel of it, and then very gently sprinkle the water on the soap. And then rub your fingers in on the soap, and circle it 3 times, and very gently, not quickly. So gently, as the water has been sprinkled, rub your fingers 3 times. And then after you finish that, wash your face. And as you wash your face, you can say these words or think it. As I wash my face, I let the tensions fade. My beauty shines on my radiant face. As I wash my face, I let the tensions fade. My beauty shines on my radiant face. And after you say that, look up and look at yourself in the mirror and say that you're beautiful. And this is just an example, so try it out and see if you can make a ritual out of washing your face. And so, as I wash my face, I let the tensions fade. My beauty shines on my radiant face. And don't forget to look after you wash yourself in the mirror and say, you are beautiful. And see how you feel after you practice this. And then if you do, please comment about it. And so you can practice it for one day or a couple of days, and then see if the ritual is coming through. Do you start believing in it? When do you start believing in it? So think about whether the different parts of the brain you're using as you're making this ritual. You're kind of having an object with an external agency. You're attributing power to it. You're also connecting the dots between different things about how the radiance of your face is coming, and the beauty of you is coming because of this ritual. And so you're kind of, and then of course the whole thing is going to give you maybe a feeling of happiness or joy, or so you're connecting it with emotions, and of course the belief. So If you think about whether this ritual is affecting you in a certain way, and if there's a certain amount of skepticism involved, if that is influencing your belief, or if you're completely wholly like immersed in it, how that's affecting you. So it'll be kind of cool for you to journal about it, or just at least ponder about it. And if you can leave comments on that, that'll be really cool to discuss as well. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, in terms of how our brains are wired to think magically. Next week, we are going to talk about how some of us are more magically inclined than the others, and how can you find your own way of magical thinking. So, subscribe to the podcast and join the mailing list. The links are below for my website, www.brainmystic.com. That's BRAINMYSTIC.com. Or you can also go to siddharthramakrishnan.com. My book, The Neuroscience of Tarot, is already out now. And you can also find The Neuroscience of Magic that's coming out in the fall, which are the themes which we are discussing in this podcast. So, and yeah, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. And I will see you next week. Bye.